Every good idea starts with a dream. And I know that you're sitting there rolling your eyes because I just presented you with the most basic idea ever. But once you really break it down for yourself, you'll come to see just how true it is. I recently listened to a TED Talk that was given by this guy named Simon Sinek, who is an author and an inspirational speaker. And in his TED Talk, he was talking about the life of Samuel Pierpont Langley, an astronomer, physicist, and inventor who had been hired by the US government to help assist in the creation of the first airplane. After a failed attempt to fly his aerodrome, which is what he called it, that was manned by a pilot, the Wright brothers took flight on December 17th, 1903, just 9 days after Samuel's second and final failure at taking flight. But the interesting part that Simon Sinek pointed out in his TED Talk was that instead of trying to add and improve to the Wright brothers' work, Samuel Pierpont Langley instead walked away. Now, there's no way to be in his brain and to be able to tell you exactly what he was thinking in that moment, on that day, whenever he chose to walk away. And I personally don't like to push the narrative of he didn't care enough because that's simply something that we will not ever know. But I do find Simon Sinek's underlying message of the point to be very interesting and valuable, which is that we can all find success in our lives, but it's where we're searching for it and why we're doing it that will distinguish how much joy we take out of it. There's a very popular idiom that reads, "Curiosity killed the cat." And we've become so accustomed to it that we assume we know exactly what it's saying. But the truth of it is that it most likely stems from a play that was written in 1852 by Ben Jonson, which uses the line, "Carol killed the cat," which would have been interpreted as "nosiness killed the cat." Now, nosiness could have definitely killed that cat, but certainly not curiosity. I was talking to one of my friends about how hard it can be to look towards the future and to not have a clue of what you want it to look like. A feeling that I was much too comfortable in, and one that I hated for quite a long time. But in that conversation, for the first time, I realized that I had actual advice for her. I realized that while I still don't have my whole future planned out or job opportunities lined up, that I now found myself fulfilled at the end of the day. And that's mostly because of this podcast. And the more that I thought about how this came to be, the more I noticed it was all based on curiosity. I use the word spark a lot on this podcast, which is very intentional. And I used it plenty on our last episode that was about Wonder Horse and their pursuit into music. In that episode, I encourage you all to follow your spark as well. But what if I don't have a spark? Which is today's episode. This is a question that left me reeling for years and years throughout graduation and post-graduation. I spent my life feeling like the only thing that I could do was be a friend to someone. And that was the only thing I felt like I knew about myself. I probably listened to Unsatisfied by the Replacements a million times, which, by the way, if you're feeling this way, is your sign to go listen to that song. But the advice that I gave my friend that day was exactly what I had done almost 3 years prior. Search for a spark. In the summer of 2022, I prayed for a passion in my life. And when I felt that my prayer went unanswered, I decided to avoid thinking about it ever again. I decided that I was going to learn to live with the existential dread as best as I could. But I found myself watching a Zoe Sugg vlog one sunny afternoon, and she was talking about the book that she had published, which was The Magpie Society. And I thought to myself, maybe I'll read this because I have nothing else to do. So I decided to take out a digital copy from my library, and I was very quickly obsessed. I'd read page after page, day after day, until I was finished and then realized that I needed another book to read. So I got another book, and then I got another, and then all of a sudden I was beginning to love to read. This led me all the way to Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, one that we talk about all the time on this podcast, and one that I attribute to basically the whole creation of this podcast. I found that with the more art that I consumed, the more I felt I had to say. So I started writing in my notes. I started blabbing to my friends and my family about every story about music that I'd learned or about what I had loved about this album that I heard. And as that spark inside of me ignited, I decided to light it on fire and join Yes Theory's online course that they were running at the time. This was a course where I learned about storytelling, joy, passion, inspiration, and how to bring those things to life through YouTube videos. And as I went through their program, I ended up having this moment where I just felt so incredibly unqualified and behind and actually uninspired. And it actually led me to walking away from it and giving up. I did this because every time I walked away from a video lecture, all I could hear in my mind was, well, that will never be me, or I could never accomplish this. And as the months went by that I wasn't participating in it, I started to feel like in my life I needed something to change. So I made it a goal of mine to finish this course, whether or not I was going to ever use the information to make YouTube videos. So I went back within the last few months that I had access to all the videos, and I watched them all. And I realized that all I had to do was turn my statement of I could never accomplish this into I don't want to accomplish this. Because when that weight lifted off of me, it actually allowed my mind to expand, and it allowed me to dream about what I could do with the information they were teaching me, whether that was going to be in YouTube form or just within my life. I started to take their advice and just build it into my lifestyle rather than videos I was creating. And giving myself that freedom made me realize that I didn't really desire to make very grand YouTube videos. I wanted to produce my content in the form of a podcast. Hence, literally began Grow Up Slowly. It all came from a really sad voice note where I was feeling like a failure going through this course and feeling like I could not do that or do anything that they were saying. I realized that I just wanted to do it in a different way and that I could. But the really interesting part of it all is that I never dreamt of being a writer. Sure, I hoped one day to write a book. Who knows about what? I have no idea. But I never envisioned myself to be writing every single week. But then when I stop and look back, I can very clearly see how the ripple effect happens. English was always my favorite class in school. I loved psychology and participated in all of the classes as soon as I was old enough to have the choice. I loved understanding people's motives, understanding why we love art, which then, of course, led me to just completely indulge myself into music and how that can change your life. And I had always spent my life jotting down random journal entries that will never see the light of day, yet I would still write them as if someone was reading them. It was only a matter of time until I realized that my prayer was answered. It was just in a way I could have never written myself. As soon as you resign the power that you think you have over your life, it allows you to sit back and to see that you never could have planned it out in the first place. I said on the last episode that we seem to have this very grand idea of what success is. But quite often, the best success is quiet. There's moments on this podcast where I receive a very meaningful comment or I reach a goal that I had made for myself 6 months prior. And those moments make me feel proud. But the reason that I continue to still work on this podcast is not because of them. It's because of the quiet moments. Like the feeling of writing and finally making sense of all the thoughts that have been rushing around in my head for the whole day. We constantly attribute the word success to visual things like money or followers or the amount of friends we have or the amount of cars that are in our driveway. It's always quantified into something that we can see, or rather, that other people can see. But I think that our true fulfillment doesn't come from success. Our joy is in those moments of fresh coffee in the morning or the golden light that highlights the edges of the mountains around you, or finding a song again that you used to love as a kid and hearing it for the first time again in 15 years. My point is that your spark doesn't have to be your job. It just has to be a part of your life. Which brings me back to the question, what if I don't have a spark? To which I'd say, read this title one more time. Get curious about the things around you. I think the most valuable lesson that Yes Theory taught me in that course was that you can always take an idea way further than you initially think, which goes to show that our base level expectations of life can quickly limit us if we don't look beyond them. If we don't challenge what our perceptions of the world around us are, then we might end up building a plane that never takes flight rather than one that does. I fear that this will always be a topic that I could write a million words about and still wake up one morning and feel slightly lost, even 10 or 20 or 30 years down the line. And while I could still rattle off all this advice like I have today, I want to say that it's okay to not have all the answers that you're looking for. My birthday recently passed, so like clockwork, I had been evaluating where I was and where I wished I was. And I had been journaling about this topic, and after I finished, I went back to read the first entry that I had written in this book, just because I was curious to see what it was. It ended up being an entry that I wrote back in 2022, a week after losing my grandma. And after I finished reading the entry, I felt this urge to go watch the video that I had made for her celebration of life, a video that I have not watched since. And as I watched all the pictures of my grandma pass by on the screen, all I could see was the little girl in her, the girl that she was before she knew any of us, and all the dreams that she had in her heart. And I was just bawling my eyes out. I very quickly realized that I never wanted to find my purpose or my passion in my career. I just wanted to be my grandma when I grew up. And the peace that I felt in that moment was unlike anything I've ever felt before. There's this trend going around on TikTok where you basically pick any clip that you want, but it's usually something centered around nature or a video of your friends and your family dancing or laughing, just something beautiful. And then over top, you'd put the text. Almost forgot that this was the whole point. And I felt that sentiment so much as I saw my grandma's kind smile in every single picture. It's really, really hard not to get swept up in the grind of life. It's really, really hard not to feel like you need to plan your next move. We are always working to not feel left behind, or always trying to not feel like a failure. And we do this because from every angle, that's what we're sold. We're sold a life that we need to learn to survive in by getting a better job, working overtime, finding the perfect partner, putting your kid in 4 different sports. And we're convinced that if we don't have enough money to support this life, then we're simply not working hard enough. But life is not about that. It's about enjoying all the blessings that you have been given. Sure, put your kid in everything that you possibly can, but do it because it's a gift in your life, not because it's a sign of your disposable income. I quite often feel like I need to have a label to allow myself to be proud of myself. And that statement has always been an unattainable goal because our value is not in our job title. And it was when I was watching the video of my grandma that I deeply and truly realized that if I get to the end of my life and have loved my family as well as she did, then that's all that I need. Your life is about way more than just finding purpose in what passes day to day. It's about the love and the lessons that you leave behind. So I'd like to dedicate this episode to my grandma and to say thank you to her. I know that it may seem silly, but I truly feel like that was divine intervention. I have never needed a lesson more. And because of my age and how life played out, I never had really the opportunity to thank her for everything she's taught me and is teaching me about how to live a full life. So, this is the best that I can do to carry that on. I will leave you today with the words from a recently released Mumford & Sons song called Rushmere. Marcus Mumford sings, "Don't you miss the breathlessness, the wildness in the eye? Come home late in the morning light, bloodshot dreams under streetlight spells. A truth no one can tell, and I was still a secret to myself." That last line, "and I was still a secret to myself," is the mentality that I really want you to lean into if you're feeling directionless. Think about your future on a small scale. Just envision tomorrow. What is something new that you can learn about yourself? What is something that you can figure out whether you love or very possibly really, really hate? And secondly, relish in the gift of imagination, because it is the beginning of everything. If you sit long enough and you watch the clouds, you will very slowly start to see them soar across the sky and to take shape into things you never would have seen if you didn't look up. Allow your brain to wonder about how things came to be and how they will always continue to change. You have to let something become more than it is in passing. Curiosity did not kill me, but rather it kept me alive. As always, the sources and all social media are linked in the show notes. Let's let music bring us together, and don't forget to grow up slowly.